Cool, Denise, thanks for spending a little time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Um, looking through some of your bio, when I hear Jersey Shore, I just think atrocious things. What's it like?
Oh, being at the Jersey Shore, oh, I love it. It's like you know, an hour away from Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and I feel like you're a world away when you go there. So, no, I love the Jersey Shore. It's so funny because I had spent probably good 25, almost 25 years in television before, joining KYW News Radio, and I thought I had the low point in my career when I had to go to the Jersey Shore to cover the arrest of Snooki. And that was our lead story for 11 o'clock. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is
That's
this is
my
a low point of my career."
that's my only knowledge of Jersey Shore. It's the only
Yeah.
thing that comes to mind is Snooki and those kids, and I've never seen them. Have you ever watched the show?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very familiar with the show. In fact, they have, like, a sequel that's going on right now, and I've watched that, yeah, I'm very familiar with it. I just didn't think I'd ever cover it as, like, the top story of the newscast.
Well,
Um,
you're younger than me, and so what did she get busted for?
she got busted for, like, public intoxication and some other silly
Oh,
things.
it was Tuesday.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, right.
Did
But
you,
where are you at?
I'm north of Chicago in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
there's not a day goes by that I wish I wasn't somewhere else.
Really?
I have a hate relationship with Wisconsin. I was born in Chicago and moved up here, and
Um,
it's
my mom was born in Chicago, but then they moved to Los Angeles soon after, and I was born in the LA area, Inglewood.
well, you
But
realize your parents realized they had the opportunity to get out. So,
at 6 months old, I guess. And I guess my grandparents thought, okay, we're gone for the West Coast. Um, but yeah, I am really good friends with well, I don't know if you get the Chicago. No, you have your own news market.
right.
Yeah, okay.
I
Um,
don't know anybody these days, but I mean, I used to be really into the old scene, with the old fossils, the Floyd Calvers and the Fahey Flynn's. And can you talk to me a little bit about your transition? How did radio come about after such a lengthy television career?
I actually started things out for myself in radio when I was in college. I worked for like an AM news talk station. I also worked on the NPR at the NPR station on campus at University of the Pacific in Stockton. So that's how I got my start. And then I went into television and I just was ready for that transition. I was ready to make the move. It was the middle of the pandemic and I was tired of working weekends and just tired of the grind that sometimes presents itself, when you're in a certain job for a while. I mean, I'd been there at the station in town in Philly for like 17 years. So
Mhm.
it was time to make my move. And then I ended up being connected. I thought I was gonna like, take a little bit of time on enjoy the Jersey Shore in the summertime. And then I got a call. Why don't we, give it, why don't you give it a try here at KYW News Radio? I'm like, okay. And what amazed me though, coming here was, and I don't think it's the case for all stations, but we have to, as anchors, run our own board. And there's so much going on in terms of breaking news and the four screens we got in front of us, and then the sounders and the, checking the audio levels and going to this reporter here and that, that
Mhm.
money news person there. It was a shock because what was like eight people doing in television was one person in
Yeah,
radio.
I wouldn't like that. You
You wouldn't
know,
like that. There's been a veteran radio reporter who came in who was asked to come in and work with us. I think day two he found out he had to work the board. He turned around. He's saying, "I ain't doing this."
no, I just Tom Hartman.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a great conversation. I didn't know much of him, but I'm just so enamored with him now. And we had an hour talk about ADHD. And I mean, I have it, and probably
Right.
most people in the world have it, but
Right.
I like stimuli, but I don't like being responsible for that much. It's not
Yeah,
like,
especially because there's not much net in front, below you. There's nothing to
right.
catch you. So if
That's
you
a good
mess up,
point.
press the wrong thing, you got to recover and just keep going.
That's a
There's a
really
delay
good point.
button, but that doesn't really help. You don't really feel like you're going to go there right away.
I was just thinking, I know you've heard it before. What unfortunate call letters.
What unfortunate call letters for
KYW.
why?
The first
Oh,
two.
KY. I never thought of that. it's such an institution. Everyone's like KYW.
I know, I mean,
No one thinks about that. Only you, Jim.
yeah, I
You
know,
go there.
that's why I
Now,
get
now I'm
big
not going to be
money.
able to erase that from my mind.
I can't believe it. It's like so
Nobody. No.
obvious to me, and well, WGN I grew up with, but not KY anything.
No, 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 no. It's not even. It's
Sorry,
funny.
Denise, now
No,
I blew your
now you
mind.
destroyed me. Now every time I say it, I'm gonna be thinking.
You're gonna bust up and you're gonna break character,
I
and
know,
you're gonna be the Jimmy Fallon of radio.
right?
You like Jimmy Fallon? Why do I hate Jimmy Fallon?
You really?
Ugh. You know
Why?
why?
What's
You
wrong?
know why I hate him? Because it's all about Jimmy Fallon.
Hmm.
Thing is about Jimmy. And you look at somebody like Kimmel, he's so self-effacing. I love it. He introduces himself over the applause, and even Colbert gets into the waits for that applause after his introduction. That kind of stuff just really turns me off when they're
Hmm.
still into them. But Jimmy Fallon will break character. I joined a website that said I hate Jimmy Fallon, and it's just
Wow, I didn't realize there was such disdain for Jimmy Fallon.
and same with Hillary Clinton. I didn't know that people hated her so vehemently. Did you?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know that. Well, it's very.
But
With our
when did
political
that
divide we have,
where did
I
that
could see that.
come from? The vitriol, the sheer. I mean, I've never met the devil, but the hatred for him is pretty close to what I felt for Hillary. Not me. I didn't feel
Yeah.
it. I just
Right.
never saw it before. I
Yeah.
mean, was that something that existed before the 2016 election?
I don't think so. I don't think. I think it was elevated. I think it really was magnified during the election
Do you
and
get
how
it?
much.
The
I
pure
don't under. No, I don't
hate?
really understand. I mean, I hear it too.
And
I
then
don't
you
understand.
see the same thing with Biden, the pure hatred. As a guy who lives near me has a flag, let's go Brandon. And I feel like pulling over and just saying, are you a Christian? Do you know what you're saying up here? And I'm not a Christian really, but I guess it's just what we've become is very startling to me. I wanted to ask you, in terms of disposition and how you carry yourself on the air, is it very similar to your TV persona, or are you allowed to? Do you work with Bill Smee?
No.
He's like head of news, isn't he? Head of news for Odyssey. I just interviewed.
Yeah, he probably is, but I don't really work with him
Okay,
within our confines.
well,
I
he
never see
deals
him or.
with somebody. Anyway,
Okay.
can you talk to me about your process? I mean, long story form with the television, I've had people tell me that they yearn for the radio because then they can really flesh out an idea or a topic as opposed to a 3-minute bit.
We are 24-hour news, so a lot of it is we are focused on what's happening, and it is like kind of like television, very quick, stories that we have. I know that personally, I feel and professionally a little bit more freedom
Mhm.
with radio than I did in television, and I think it's because I can concentrate on my message. I don't have to worry about the look, and
Yeah,
that's really important. That's a huge thing.
really
Um,
is.
where it was always, half of it was, the video and also appearances. And I don't have to worry about that anymore. And it's such a relief. And I feel like a burden somewhat lifted that I can come in here comfortable and I can just be myself. And I've always tried to be myself, but I don't have to worry about, you know, putting on the Spanx and the dress or what, or whatever, makeup,
Yeah,
fake eyelashes, that's silly
I'm
stuff. And
sure
I
you
am
had to
a
do that
person.
a lot of that spank stuff with you. You already look like a supermodel. What I
Yeah, no, no. I mean, it's just like as on the anchor desk, you just, you want to look, you're the camera's on you, and as an anchor and a reporter, especially as an anchor on the desk, it was, you have to, make sure you had a clean appearance.
yeah.
So it is very freeing to be able to be in a studio, and you do have so much more control than you do in television, which I like, but it is kind of, it's hard. And I used to have knots in my stomach coming out of the studio because of how much control we would have.
Mhm.
But I feel like I can be more of myself, in radio than opposed to TV.
Do you find the lack of a net that you referred to earlier as freeing at the same time? I mean, because on TV, you screw up, it's just so magnified, but in radio, you almost expect it. I almost find when somebody screws up, if they're in a discussion, people screw up in discussions all the time, and I think it's just more palatable when somebody messes on radio. I feel it almost humanizes them more.
I think so. I think so. I feel like it's more the blue collar
Mhm.
of mediums as opposed to, television. So yeah, there is no net, and I find that a challenge more than
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Like I can do this. And even just running the board, I felt like, okay, this is a huge
yeah,
multitasking feat ahead of me. And I'm gonna master this thing
right.
because I have no other choice. So
Been 2 years now since you mastered, I've been dealing
yeah,
with.
yeah. I got hired about 2.5 years ago, and then 6 months into being part-time, I'm like, they were like, "Oh, you want to be here full-time?" I'm like, sure. And we
Yeah.
only have like 6 full-time anchors here. We don't have many full-time anchors. So I felt fortunate that somebody had decided to retire early and I, you know, went right in there. So,
I'm keeping my eye on your 25 out, so just so you know.
oh, okay, yeah. Well,
I mean, I'd go all day. I'm just cognizant of what you needed.
thank you. Thank
It's just, again, can you walk me through the 15-year-old Denise? What was going through your mind? Are you one of those that always knew that media might be your future, or what were you
Oh,
doing at
yeah.
15?
In fact, I was 13 when I decided. And that was because growing up in Los Angeles, the radio, the television always on in my household. My dad, especially, was a big news watcher and listener. So it was always on. We leave the house and he was old school, like, oh, we have to leave the radio on so people think someone's home. And so the radio was always on in the background. There was always some kind of noise that was related to media. So I decided at 13 that's what I wanted to do. And I told a few people and as I went into college, I worked on, the campus, radio station and I did what I needed to do to take the steps to get there because for me I felt like I grew up in a suburb outside Los Angeles and I felt there was a bit more small town feel that to break out in such a competitive field would be difficult, but I thought if I'm going to take little steps to get there, I will be able to accomplish it and it kind of just worked out for me. And I just traveled from, city to city.
Were you an anomaly among your friend base in terms of knowing what you wanted? And it sounds like you never deviated from it, but did you see
No.
that you were like, did your friends share that kind of commitment to something?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I was pretty unusual in that way. But yeah, I had decided early on, and I think it was because I heard and saw people that I felt like I could relate to, and I felt this is something within reach that I can accomplish. But yeah, a bunch of my buddies, they've always changed what they wanted to do in life, and people are still surprised to this day to hear, "Oh, you were, just 13 when you decided," and I never deviated. It was always something that I always wanted to do.
So foreign to me. I just, I'm still kind of, I don't know. I'm still perplexed by it all. But it does go back to that ADHD that Tom Hartman was talking about. He had 4 careers, 4 businesses that I'm just, so flabbergasted by, just amazed that he had so much acumen for so many different areas. It was just truly a wonderful experience. So where do you see, there's a lot of talk about, KGO and big stations like that biting the dust. Do you think there's still room for terrestrial radio? Or are we going to have to find a different way to deliver the messages, or find a happy medium between radio and perhaps a podcast?
I think we're already sort of there where we're evolving. More of the podcasting is becoming a reality and reaching out in different ways, even through like social media. It is happening across the board. I mean, it's how we saw it with newspapers. We're seeing it with television in a major way, how they're making, big cutbacks and even on the network level, getting rid of major shows in prime time.
Washington Post is, I read, was laying off a couple hundred people or
Oh
something.
yeah, it's interesting because nowadays people are getting their news from social media and what have you. They're not necessarily tuning in, but I feel like we just still have maybe probably in my lifetime, here in Philly, which has become a great home to me, that people do very much rely still on, KYW News Radio. If they're listening to news, you know, they're listening to KYW News Radio. If they're watching TV, they have like 4 different channels to choose from. But if you're looking for news, usually you're tuning into us. So it's really nice to have that base. Um, but
Did
yeah, we are definitely evolving.
did you read where a lot of the BMWs and foreign cars, and now the Ford F-150 is now discontinuing AM radio in the cars?
Is it really?
Look it up
Wow.
after we hang up.
Okay.
And well, let me ask you, some of the argument has been the interference with the electrical cars, mostly electrical cars, but Ford's now doing it. And it's just startling to me, where what if there's an emergency now? Who are you going to turn, somebody's Twitter account, or where are you going to go in these situations? And do you see that as a viable across the board thing? I know it's new. We just brought it up to you, but can you see that happening with more makes of cars, if you will? And if so, what I think it's problematic.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the first I've heard of it. And to eliminate any source of it boggles my mind. Although the folks here, the leaders here had a year ago ended up picking up an FM station. So we're not only on our longtime AM station, but we're also on FM too. Even if Ford wants to get rid of the AM, we're now on FM too. But still, I mean, I think it's just really restrictive to there's so many, I think, people who are still connecting in that way. Or maybe they're going through an app, which everyone is now connecting through. You can still listen to any, I guess, station in the country through an app.
Right. I look at my daughters and they do that. I still am not, up to speed on that stuff. But lastly, were you one of the, you're a baker, correct?
I like to do art. I like to
On your,
bake. I like to cook. I've done scuba diving. I like to be a well-rounded person. It makes me happy to be able
what
to do other things.
were you a COVID baker? Because my grandfather was a real baker in patents and things like that. And I made the bread during the entire pandemic. I think part of it was a lifeline to something nurturing. Did you do a lot more during the pandemic, or was it pretty much just,
My pandemic project actually was learning how to do stained glass.
hmm,
I watched YouTube, and I'm always wanted to learn how to do stained glass. And I actually made my second project was like a tree of life that hangs in my windowsill. So that was my pandemic project. Baking has always kind of been with me as well. I like the artistry behind it. I like decorating the cakes and things like that. I'm not necessarily a sweets person. I'm more of a savory person. French fries,
yeah,
chips are my thing.
yeah.
But I do like decorating and that. But you're gonna have to share with me one of your bread recipes because I haven't really gotten to bread, and I think I could, get into that.
Well, it's a little addicting. It truly is. I mean, waking up in the morning, I had an idea where I wanted to market, call it 425, and all people had to do was purchase that and drop it right in the oven, because there's nothing like the healing smell of fresh bread. I mean, it's so,
Great.
it's intoxicating in a way, and but the art is so beautiful. Just something that dawned on me yesterday. Do you look back on, we've used this term pandemic ad infinitum, but to some extent, it feels like it really didn't happen. I'm so confused by it all. Do you ever look back and think it was some kind of bad dream?
Having had COVID probably 6 months ago, I was like, okay, that's a bit of reality check. Um, I don't know. I think it's changed and it's an awakening in a way. I don't feel like I've been sleeping and all of a sudden like is in a kind of a horrible nightmare. I feel like it just showed some of the best of people and some of the worst of people in many ways. It's changed how we work. A lot a lot of us. I never had the choice.
Well,
I
look
always
at
had to come to
this.
the
I mean, how
studio.
often did you do this, really?
Never.
Got to the point where when I was watching a show like MSNBC or whatever, it's strange to see guests in the studio now.
True.
I see that, and I liked it when they were bringing them in from all over. I don't think we lose a step with that. Do you think we lose anything with that?
I think so. Some kind of connection in a way, being able to be in the presence of somebody else, I think it changes. But, we also do have more access to people. Like, okay, so you can't fly somebody in, but you can like immediately boop connect through Zoom and then
Right.
you're there. So
In
that's
5 minutes. Yeah, you
oh
can
yeah.
set that up. I'm doing it now with this other stuff. Do you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I mean, to me, it's a neat little progression. It's not, to me, it's not a hindrance at all. I think it's kind of, even watching Colbert, I enjoyed watching him in his house. It was just very strange to me. What's the last thing you streamed, or have you had time to watch anything or read anything?
Oh gosh.
I like to engage with something you do, like, other than binge Jersey Shore.
Oh, Wednesday. I've been watching Wednesday.
How is it?
I like it. I like it. And
Have
and
you
then I've
seen
been
Dead to Me?
no.
Highly recommend it. It's
Okay.
Christina Applegate, and I never remember her name, but you'll love it if you like. It's funny. They kept it alive. She has MS now. Did you see the poor girl?
No, I saw that because she was accepting her walk of
Yeah, Walk of Fame.
fame.
But the
Yeah.
third season, she allowed herself to be presented, and you could see the weight gain. courage. I mean, just sheer courage on a woman like that. You're past your time. Thank you so much, Denise, for spending
Thanks,
the
Jim.
time with me. I really appreciate it. And you were Barrett recognized you, right? Those leaders recognized you for something, correct? Because that's where your name
Yeah,
came.
I mean, yeah, I was very surprised. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised to hear about that, that I was on somebody's radar.
Yeah,
But
well,
I
you're
mean,
on.
it's
Seem to be on a lot. You know Rich Cioli in town?
yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. He's like literally a couple studios down the hall.
Oh, he's in the same building. Well, tell
Oh,
him I said
yeah, on the same floor. We're all under Odyssey, of
hi.
course. And
I was
head,
on his show last week promoting my shameless promotion. I'm still not used to this directional thing. It's about talkers, and it's been remarkable. And then Soledad O'Brien last week, and the
nice.
Hardman thing. A lot of predominantly right wing people, but I'm trying so hard to even it out. But you know how it's tough to find progressive talkers.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Right.
they're either reluctant. There's not that many, and Tom Hartman gave, if you get a chance, his take on that was remarkable about going back to LBJ and going back to Nixon, how they took on the disenfranchised racists as their voting base. And just to talk to a man like that who has just like an encyclopedic knowledge of the world is just so refreshing. And
Yeah.
there's so many goofy people out there. Well,
Well,
Denise,
that's the great thing about our job. We get to have the license to talk
well,
to
it's
different people and pull information.
an insatiable curiosity.
Hmm.
Like I walk into a library and it's really goofy, but I feel so corny. I feel like the world is right there for me. I feel anything is possible when you walk into a library.
I understand that. I love libraries, and
It's just like the world is at your fingertips. The problem is which do you pick,
mm-hmm.
Baker or being Snooky? So don't ever think of that when you think about the call letters now. Don't ever think about that.
It's too late. You destroyed me.
Thank you, Denise. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Great
Have a
meeting you.
great weekend.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye bye.